Hello and welcome to Creature Club. It's a weekly podcast all about the monsters of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Daniel and I'm joined by Tim.
Hello, I'm Tim.
I'd do more of an intro, but we've no time because we have a million devils to review before we can even leave the D's, and we have to do dragons as well. Honestly, it's a hot mess. Tim, what are we doing this week?
Stuff later on. This week we are going to be diving straight into the Bone Devil because we're on our toes this week. We're ready to jump into Bone Devil.
Double time jazz, baby.
Or the Ozilith or Osilith or however you want to pronounce that bizarrely spelled word.
Ozilith. I went and did a bit of searching, but I couldn't figure out. I think that's just a word for Bone Devil.
Okay, yeah. I think that a lot of the in brackets names are basically just the names given to them so that they didn't have devil beside them during the Satanic Panic stuff. So it's just made up words. Words.
Although, interestingly enough, if you search Ozilith, you get apparently the Bone Devil was a DLC guest character in Mortal Kombat 10, which sounds pretty cool, to be honest.
Oh, that sounds pretty rad.
That's a great idea.
Kombat 10. Just add in a bunch of devils into your fighting combat game.
Yeah, I mean, like Mortal Kombat already has like a nonsense plot with loads of interdimensionality stuff, so it fits pretty well.
Just bring in the D&D world with the Ozilith.
Another dimension, fuck's sake.
More of them. So yes, the Bone Devil. Daniel, do we have a history within the world of D&D to discuss about this boy?
So the Bone Devil is like a couple of other guys in this lineup. He is an old school devil. The Bone Devil is from the first monster manual in AD&D, which is when we first get access to the devils. It's interesting, actually. Like I think I've mentioned this before with the Barb Devil. A lot of what we see in the description for AD&D is a lot of what we have here in the 5th edition monster manual. It's very loyal translation, I suppose. It describes how they like heat. They like the 5th layer of hell. They have a hook that they like to grab people with, and that's kind of all we get about them. And then basically that's kind of all we ever get about them. They're the sort of top rung of the lesser devils, so they're 7th in the infernal hierarchy.
Oh my!
And I think that puts them just below
Horned Devils.
Horned Devils, thank you. I was trying to remember. Horned Devils being the very kind of classic, prototypical devil, realistically. And that's sort of really all there is to them in terms of... They've showed up in every edition of the game since in one way or another. Obviously, the Ozilith is when they were not allowed to be called devils because of certain concerned parent groups. And all that's fine, obviously. It's not... It doesn't make any sense, but I mean, those panics never do.
I believe it was Mothers Against Dungeons and Dragons.
Mad.
It's just
with
mad.
2 Ds.
And an N somewhere in there, or an A, or my dad.
Yeah, I mean, like I think it's fair to say that like by the time we were growing up, that whole notion had passed on.
Yeah, very much so.
Like I think when we were playing D&D, our parents had very little understanding of it and just kind of understood that it was something that required a lot of dice and knowledge and kept us indoors.
Yeah, and a bit of imagination. Yeah.
They were like, they're not going out drinking in a field. That's probably for the best.
Yep. Is there something wrong with them? Not at all. That just means that they're having a good time with their friends without the aid of intoxicants.
Booze.
Except the intoxicating world that is in your brain. I'm high on life, you guys.
My favorite sort of comment one of our parents ever had on D&D was Rob's dad at one stage after we'd been playing for a while said, "You've been playing that game for a while now. Is there any money in it?" It's just like, no.
Excellent. No.
But that's, I don't know, I just thought it's just such a fantastic observation.
Yeah.
Like, any money in it? Like, nah.
Can you get a job with that game?
Can I fuck? Yeah, and that's sort of it, really. They've appeared in every edition since, and realistically, they haven't changed a huge amount. you could say they've maybe lost some powers. I think it's more like, as part of the notion of simplifying 5th edition, the devils are a lot more individually distinct. And the thing that puts the thing they have in common is realistically like their resistances, immunities, their dark vision, their devil's sight, and a lot of them have magic resistance, but like they all have pretty unique powers. Whereas, for example, in the AD&D monster manual, we have a description where it basically says that all devils have the ability to perform the following, and it lists a couple of spells.
Oh, cool.
And it basically means, in other words, like, because they're creatures from another plane, they all have access to this inherent magic.
Sweet. Well, that's pretty handy.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of cool, and like it gives you an idea of like, one thing I do like about it is that it means that there's perhaps reasons that the players would use them. For example, it says that all devils can cast teleportation with no chance of error.
Wow.
Which is interesting because that suggests like there might be a reason that the party might summon a devil to get them to teleport them somewhere, because they know that they can't make mistakes.
Part of they sign a contract with the devil so that they can teleport them wherever they need to go for some kind of cost.
Exactly, yeah. And interesting enough, under general characteristics, the same place where it talks about spells, it says only Arañas, Barb Devils, and Bone Devils can be hit by non-magic weapons.
Ooh.
So of all the different devil types, only those 3 can be struck at all by a non-magic weapon.
Cool.
Perhaps because of the fact that they are lesser devils.
Yeah.
And then they talked shite for 5 minutes.
Excellent. Anyway, Bone Devil, where are we?
I don't know. God, I've just gone back. I'm 14 again. I'm deeply uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
I want to go back to being a Bone Devil. At least then I know what's happening.
Shall we read out the little description of the Bone Devil in the monster manual here?
Absolutely.
I will read the first paragraph and you can read the second, Daniel.
Oof, okay.
Bone Devil. Ozolith. Driven by hate, lust...
A Bone Devil...
Oh, no.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm so awkward at 14 again. I don't know. Is it my cue? Take 2. Bone Devil, Ozolith. Driven by hate, lust, and envy, Bone Devils act as the cruel taskmasters of the 9 hells. They set weaker devils to work, taking special delight in seeing fiends that defy them demoted. At the same time, they long for promotion and are bitterly envious of their superiors, attempting to curry favor, though it irks them to do so.
Damn, dude, that was like proper like Pokemon narration style. That was awesome. That was so exciting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
I really enjoyed that.
I typically read them with like a kind of a hint of like evil in there, but I decided to go like full enthusiasm, like this guy's the best guy ever. So
no, yeah, I loved it. It was really good. That was honestly enthralling.
I'll be a little more monotonous next time I read
something
out, so it's not too
don't
exciting.
Feel like you have to change it all. It was fantastic. I just don't know how I'm going to follow it. Okay.
Pure monotone.
Yeah, right. A Bone Devil appears as a humanoid husk with the dried skin stretched tight across its skeletal frame. It bears a fearsome skull-like head and the tail of a scorpion, and a foul odor of decay hangs in the air around it. Though they are devastating in combat with their claws, Bone Devils also wield hooked pole arms made of bone, which they use to subdue enemies before striking with their venomous tails.
That is very cool. It is
very cool.
With the description, it doesn't quite give them... Does it give them the fairy wings? With their strange fairy wings?
It doesn't mention them, but they are there, and they do have a fly speed as well.
Yeah, like I think that's one of the most compelling things about the Bone Devil. So it's strange that they leave it out of the description.
Yeah, in the artwork for the monster manual, just to catch our viewers up, the Bone Devil is depicted as described, sort of a scary skeletal, devilish figure with a sort of a grim rictus face, and long claws and a scorpion tail. But it also has like sort of almost like fairy or moth-like wings, which are very incongruous with the rest of its sort of appearance, and also incongruous with other devils, because most devils have sort of bat-like or bird-like wings.
Yeah.
And it sort of adds to it as sort of an unusual creature, and kind of gives it an insectile feel, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
You can kind of imagine it buzzing as it gets close, and kind of, the thing that like, moths do where they kind of lift off and then land again. I imagine it doing something like that.
Yeah, that's freaky. I'm scared, Daniel. Anyway,
I'm sorry. God, Mike is going to hate it when he listens to this episode.
No, yeah, he sure is. But I think that their specific design, like having them slightly insectoid, but giving them the kind of interior bone structure, is like the bone structure is so close to the surface that it's practically an exoskeleton.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Which is kind of cool. Like they're the most visually, I'd say, terrifying, but also interesting of the devils, in my opinion. So I definitely want to do some cool stuff with them.
I definitely feel like they're the one that like has the most, just of the devils. I feel like they do the best job of just being like really monstrous in a very apparent way.
Yeah.
Like
for
a lot of the rest of them are kind of like dangerous looking,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the Bone Devil does a really good job of just invoking kind of a real sense of horror about like how this creature is from another world, and it's like its alien physiology is just like abhorrent to behold. And you know the notion that if this thing landed in like say like a town square, the people would flip, you know.
Literally, they would all do a single flip where they stood.
Everybody do that.
So that's our Bone Devil boy. Shall we jump on the train to meat and potatoes?
Indeed.
Play that music.
Hey Tim, there's bones in this meat.
Oh no! Who put those there?
I can't imagine who would do such a thing.
Wink. Oh, Daniel. Bone Devil. Large fiend. Open brackets. Devil. Close brackets. Comma. Lawful evil. Armor class 19. Natural armor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna plow through it. We were talking about speediness and punctuality. In this.
No, I wasn't sure if you'd start opening more brackets when it said natural armor.
Oh, I'm gonna be inconsistent with this one, Daniel.
All right, I respect
Hit
that.
points 142. Open brackets 15 d10 plus 60 close brackets. Speed 50 ft full stop comma fly 40 ft dot. So it's 40 feet in fly and movement speed in general.
Yeah.
Which is a quick boy. Substantially quicker.
Faster than most players and faster in the air than most players.
Certainly most faster in the air.
Yeah.
Strength 18, dexterity 16, constitution 18, intelligence 13, open brackets plus 1 close brackets, wisdom 14, charisma 16. So that's a hefty little. I mean, that's outside of the realms of a standard PC character.
Yeah,
like
who rolls well. Yeah.
That's a well-rolled character, well-rounded boy.
It is, yeah.
I still think that for these guys, I would definitely give them all a consistent boost to their intelligence, but that's just the world that I would like to live in when it comes to devils. Oh no!
Is that for the point of view of like them being like sort of the notion of like the lawful, like legal maneuvering and stuff like that, or
yeah, the if they come up with a contract, it has to have some twist in it that the PCs won't have read into. So it takes a solid chunk of brains to do that, and this guy has an enormous cranium, so I presume he has a little bit of a brain in there. It looks kind of like a pine cone, to be honest, or like a cool.
I can see that, yeah.
Like a cool artichoke. Anyway, look at me, I'm cool artichoke.
Look out, it's the Bone Devil, cool artichoke.
I'm gonna have to make a Bone Devil in my setting now, whose name is Cool Artichoke.
Cool Artichoke. It means something different in Infernal. It's very cool in Infernal. Yeah, that's an interesting thought, Tim. You could always say that for the purposes of, say, for example, if you wanted to say that the devil is negotiating a contract with the players, you could just basically say that the devil makes a like deception check with advantage, and the player has to roll insight against that to sort of survive the twist, in other words.
Okay.
Or even like notice the twist, because because the Bone Devil and a couple of other devils are trained in deception. So maybe you could argue like because they're trying to hide things in the contract, you would use deception rather than intelligence. Even though obviously intelligence is the like sort of legal framework ability.
The like structured thought ability.
Yeah.
Saving throws, intelligence plus 5, wisdom plus 6, and charisma plus 7. So 3 saving throws, which has less than the Barb Devil. But the Barb Devil is he one of the greater demons?
The Barb Devil is also a lesser devil, I think.
Interesting. Yes, he is. How about that? So he's a higher challenge rating, but he has fewer saving throws than the Barb Devil.
Yeah, but the Barb Devil also has a lower strength score, so the Bone Devil is actually going to hit more.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah. Skills: Deception +7, Insight +6. Damage resistances: Cold, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks not made with silvered weapons. So, again, consistent. Damage immunities: Fire, poisoned. Condition immunities: Poisoned. Senses: Dark vision, 120 feet. Passive perception of 12. Languages: Infernal and Telepathy, 120 feet. Challenge rating: 9. 5,000 XP. Wow. Delicious. So yeah, that's a solid chunk of a devil. A nice little stat array, basically, and relatively in line with what we have come to expect from Devil Boys so far. So yeah.
I'd agree with that, yeah.
Nothing really jumps out, though, which I find a little bit annoying, because like all of our devils so far have had basically the same immunities, resistances, languages. Like, there's nothing that has made anybody stick out yet. I think there will probably be one or two later on, but the devils have been irritatingly consistent, I would say, so far.
Well, I would say that is true, but I suppose it maybe fits the idea that they're part of a structure, their lawful alignment, the notion that they all come from the same basic core or whatever, so they have to have some stuff in common.
Okay, I'll agree with that and rescind my statement.
No, I think your observation is absolutely fair, because ultimately, like, it doesn't, like, the lore should serve the lore should serve the game. So like, if the lore is saying that all these devils have the same abilities, like, that's not actually very interesting to fight necessarily. So like, maybe the rules should be bent to allow creatures to be more different, because that actually creates more different fights. But well, maybe we'll finish the stat block and maybe we'll find something we like.
Sure, let's jump into abilities.
Devil's Sight. Magical darkness doesn't impede the devil's dark vision. So that's, again, consistent with the other devils. That's kind of one of their signature abilities. And, of course, magic resistance. The devil has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects.
There you go.
Again, pretty consistent with the other devils. I'm pretty sure, I think all of them have it, except for maybe the Lemures. Actions. Multi-attack. The devil makes 3 attacks, 2 with its claws and 1 with its sting. Then its claw is a melee weapon attack with a +8 to hit. That's pretty good. Reach 10 feet. That's honestly probably more useful. 1 target, hit 8 damage, which is 1d8 +4. So his claws are long swords, which is pretty good.
Nice.
And then his sting, which is also a melee weapon attack, and it also has +8 to hit, and it also has a 10-foot reach. So these 2 attacks are identical in terms of reaching players to attack with them. So the Bone Devil can stand in one place and hit everyone with the same attack.
Nice.
Hit at 2d8 +4, which is an average of 13 piercing damage, plus 5d6 poison damage, which is an average of 17, which is pretty good. And the target must succeed on a DC 14 Constitution saving throw or become poisoned for 1 minute. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turn, ending the effect on itself on a success.
Cool.
So that is just a poison with no other consequences. You just get the poison condition. So it isn't like the wounds of the beard or anything like that. This is just you are poisoned, and that means you have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, but not saving throws. So you can still get rid of the poison.
Yeah, that'll be a funny name for a cult. The Wound of the Beard. We are the Wound of the Beard. I don't know, just the way you said it made me think the Wound of the Beard. Like, I see a bunch of people in cloaks with their beards just all over the place. Anyway.
And then there is the variant, very quickly, just because it also has action options. So this is in line with what we described, how some bone devils have a polearm made of bone. It says some bone devils have the following attack options. So this represents if your bone devil has that polearm. Multi-attack. The devil makes 2 attacks, so you're losing 1 attack. 1 with its hooked polearm and 1 with its sting. And then it describes the hooked polearm here, which is another melee weapon attack with +8 to hit, and another weapon with reach of 10 feet. Which is a little disappointing, given that all of its other attacks already have 10 feet, and this is supposed to be a polearm, so maybe we could up that to 15.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And on hit, it's pretty good. 2d12 +4 piercing damage, which is an average of 17.
Nice.
And if the target is huge or smaller, it is grappled, escape DC 14, same as the Constitution saving throw. Until this grapple ends, the devil can't use its polearm on another target. So in other words, it's more like a lockdown ability where you can hook one person with a polearm, and then every turn after that, when you multi-attack, you have to hit that creature with the polearm, and obviously you can hit something else with the stinger.
I wonder, can it choose to ungrapple a character? Like, would that be a reasonable thing to assume?
I believe so. Yes. You can, if you are grappling something, I'm pretty sure you can choose to end it as part of any other action.
Yeah.
For free, basically.
Yeah. But
so if it wanted to attack another creature, yes, I think it could let go. Because the way grappling works is the person grappling you can just sort of stop it for free at any time, and any forced movement also ends the grapple from either direction.
Yeah. I think giving it the ability to choose not to grapple someone, I think would also be cool. So you can attack someone with it and then attack the person that you do want to grapple. Like, you can punch the cleric in the back and then grapple the paladin who's all up in your grill, and then make him do the grapple thing, and just kind of give you a little bit more variation, because otherwise you might accidentally grapple the cleric and then slap it onto the paladin. Although I think being able to grapple would be cool with this flavor wise, because with his speeds he'd be able to drag you around pretty well. And
that's true.
With the idea of your him flying from place to place, like really jumpily and creepily, that would be pretty freaky to describe to your players what's happening to one of them.
I mean, like, even just the simple idea of him, of the bone devil using its hooked polearm, grabbing a creature, and then flying 40 feet upwards and dropping them, and then just letting them fall.
Yeah, I wonder what the rules are for flight while carrying another person. Do you think that it would be encumbered by that? Would it get half movement, or do you think just for flavor?
I assume you just use the normal rules. So when you're grappling a creature, you move at half speed. So I think you just use the same rules. Just say you move at half speed. Like the bone devil moves at half speed when it's grappling something.
Yeah.
You could use its strength score to calculate its carrying capacity and then ask the player for how much they weigh. But if they're a D&D player, they probably haven't calculated their character's base weight. And instead of just kind of pick the number, or they can tell you how much their gear weighs and not how much their character weighs.
Yeah.
Which isn't a problem, obviously, because it shouldn't be something that matters.
Yeah.
Because it's a weird thing where optimally, if your party is going to carry each other, you should minimize your weight. And if your party is going to be worried about other things carrying you, you should maximize your weight. Which is why it should basically it shouldn't be a decision that you make because it's weird. Like it should probably just be like your strength plus your con plus your dex times 5 or something, just like something like that.
That'll be a handy little thing to go for, because with all of the kind of physical stats, it does lend itself. And then like the average of all of your mental stats, so that you get to weigh how much your brain is.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Your head is like what, 1/3 of your weight or something. So
I don't know about that.
It's some high percentage of your weight because your brain's really heavy. But I know it's not 1/3. It's something. But it's like, is it 20%? Your head is 20% of your weight?
I'm not perfectly sure. No, I have no idea, so I'm not
going to. That's fair. I can't recall either. I just remember hearing that it's higher than you'd think, just because your brain is heavy, and also because your skull is thick to protect your brain, which makes sense. Anyway, yes, if it grapples something, it can move half its speed, because that's the normal rules for grappling, and I would apply that to flying as well, unless there was some reason I couldn't do that. But it is worth remembering that the Bone Devil has a fly speed and no hover speed, which means that it can't just stay in the air.
Yeah.
Depending on conditions. So if it wants to bring someone up even higher, it has to keep flying upwards.
Yeah.
It can't sort of hang up in the air for a couple of turns without doing a bit of moving around, because it's relying on its wings rather than magic to move around.
Yeah, and the kind of fairy / dragonfly wings would lend themselves to the idea that it might be able to hover, but I don't think giving it a hover speed would serve it any, basically. It would make it a little bit kind of more awkward. Any other remarks about the old stat block?
As I say, I think if you're going to have the polearm variant, I think the reach of the polearm should be longer. Either 15 feet just to make it longer, or go exciting and make it 20 feet, because the players would not expect that.
Yeah.
And that also emphasizes because when you think about it in terms of like what's happening, the polearm basically replaces both of your claw attacks. So you're reducing the number of attack rolls, which means you're not as likely to hit, and also you're not as likely to crit. And also it's got a slightly better damage in terms of its 2d12s rather than 2d8s. Although obviously you get +4 rather than +8. So again, little different, but overall
about the same.
Like average damage, it's 1 more. And then the grappling is also very valuable, of course.
Yeah.
But that's dependent on, individual characters and all that other nonsense. But just in terms of the fact that, like, you're giving up a whole attack to use the hooked polearm, and just doing a bit more, just doing on an average, like,
a pinch more damage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to understate it, but basically, yeah, on average, you're doing 1 more damage, and it's a weapon damage type, so it's as likely to be, like, slashing and piercing are basically identical in terms of how valuable they are. So realistically, you're basically giving up an attack to also grapple them, which is pretty good. And I don't want to understate that, but I think it would just be more interesting if the hooked polearm had a longer range, because I think a couple of things. First of all, I think it would make, so for example, if the Bone Devil, if its hooked polearm and its sting are the same reach, then they don't feel as unique. Whereas I like the notion that the Bone Devil uses the polearm to pull people close.
Ooh.
Because with the grappled condition, if it can, let's say its range is 20 feet, it hits you and then it moves you 10 feet closer to it using its movement, because it can do that with you when it's grappling you.
Yeah.
And then it hits you with the stinger. So in other words, it's able to line up a 1-2 punch with its abilities.
Yeah, giving them a kind of a stacked idea, so that, like, this character helps himself a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And great thing about monsters that do that is that it's something that your players can see and respond to.
Yeah.
So if your players know his 1-2 punch is get you with the polearm, then pull you in close and get you with the stinger. If they know, this is what the Bone Devil likes to do, they can plan around that in certain ways, and they can predict and therefore try to, like, outmaneuver it in some way, which is exciting.
He's kind of a middle range character where he's most effective, where he can hook you with the polearm, do some damage, pull you in, and then get you with your stinger. So if you keep him at a distance, then, I mean, obviously if you're out of range of anything, you're going to be out of range of something. But if you're up in his grill, I would probably make it a little bit awkward for him to use his hooked polearm. Like, he can't attack something within 5 feet, so he uses just a claw attack instead. So with his multi-attack, he will get 1 claw or 1 hooked polearm attack, and the stinger would probably be how I would rule him, so that he has the effectiveness at a certain distance, and then up close he's a little awkward with himself, because he's a big bony awkward lanky dude, just like me. I relate to our artichoke head.
No, it was cool artichoke.
Cool artichoke shit.
Yeah, like I like the idea that the polearm has, like, a long range, so that he, like you say, he's like almost like a mid-range skirmisher, where, like, he hangs outside the party's range, grabs one of them with the polearm, and then pulls them in close and stings them. And then the counterplay is actually to have everyone rush the Bone Devil and get in close, so that he can't retreat without provoking opportunity attacks.
Okay.
Because that feels, like, interesting and, like, different to, because you don't get a lot of mid-range creatures. You get a lot of sort of long-range casters and, like, up in your face, like birdie boys. But the idea of something that's like, I want to be, like, I'm a little faster than the average party member. I've got moves that are longer range than them, but they're still melee weapons. So I want to be kind of close enough to get my melee attacks off, and then I can pull out after I've done that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're broaching our third section of our episode. So
my feet are slipping into dessert, indeed.
I can smell the cake already.
I've ruined my socks and the dessert.
Cake. No. Dang it. Dessert bell. Ding.
There it is.
Alrighty. Here we are.
Here we are.
In the Matrix room.
Yeah.
No jokes this time. We're being serious.
I understand.
Yes. So this guy, I think he's going to be, like, without making him cooler than he is by kind of adding flavor stuff to him, I think he's just going to be a little bit of a slogfest. He's going to fly around a bit, maybe, and he's going to jump around a bit. But I don't think he's going to be much of a challenge to a team of level 9 characters.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He doesn't do a huge amount of damage. Both his claw attacks are just, as I say, they're long swords, which sounds dangerous in the context of it being a claw, but in the context of fighting level 9 adventurers, the fact that you basically make 2 longsword attacks and then a sort of a poisoned big longsword, or a poisoned, I don't know, greatsword, I guess, in some ways, is fine, but it isn't that big a deal, especially when it's just the poisoned condition with no other consequences.
5d6 poison is pretty significant.
Yeah, but poison is the most frequently resistant damage type. Like a dwarf just has resistance and has advantage on con saves. On all saving throws against poison. So like if they're hitting certain characters, it just won't do as much damage. And a DC 14 con saving throw isn't actually that tough for a level 9 party. Level 9, you have a +3 proficiency bonus, so you just need an 11.
You might even have a +4.
Do you have +4 by level 9? I can't recall if it's
I can't either.
I can't recall if it's ever level 9 or level 11. Yeah, you check. But I suppose in fairness, not everyone has proficiency in Constitution saving throws, but even still.
Yes.
It's not a big deal, and you can repeat the saving throw each turn, so...
You get +4 at level 9. So at level 9.
At level 9, okay, grand. So at level 9, so
that's just a perfect average, basically. Like,
so yeah, if you are proficient and have nothing in con, you have a 50-50, and realistically you have a 50-50, and then you get to repeat it every round. So like you'll probably be poisoned for 2 rounds if you're even poisoned for that long.
Yeah.
It's relatively trivial for party members to remove that poison if it's a problem at 9th level as well. The priest or the cleric or the bard can both remove poison at that stage. Lesser restoration, I think, gets rid of those.
I believe so.
So yeah, I would agree. I think it's mostly going to be like a sort of a classic HP race as to who falls over first. And I think that assuming that the party are well equipped in terms of fighting a devil, i.e. they have either magic or silvered weapons, I think they'll be fine. If they don't, this creature has basically almost 300 hit points, at which stage that's a boss fight. Although unfortunately it's not a very interesting boss fight because it's a boss fight with no lair or legendary actions. And even still it will just be again a slog where it's a HP race. But yeah, I think it'll be a very sort of back and forth battle. I do think that the Bone Devil will have the benefit of having both a high natural armor and a higher speed in the party, which will make it difficult for them to retreat and difficult for the squishier members of the party to outmaneuver them. And I think it's fair to say that the Devil is smart enough to know to go after the more vulnerable members first. So like they're basically going to jump the front line and end up next to the wizard if they can help it. I think they are smart enough to be able to tell who that is, and also I think that they are fast enough to be able to outmaneuver them, at least initially.
I agree.
And obviously because of their magic resistance, the wizard is going to have a harder time using a lot of their powerful spell effects, and they'll probably have to resort to spells that just make attack rolls, because the devil doesn't have advantage against those.
Although if you've been fighting devils at up to level 9, you're going to know that you're magic resistant, that they have some magic resistance, and you probably will have something prepared for that. Like, I'd imagine if you have a cool DM, he might give one of your characters some kind of boon that allows them to cause disadvantage on a saving throw against a magical effect. Like, I think Bane does that, maybe, or Hex, I think, also does that. I'm not super sure. I think Hex might actually just do damage, but I think that giving your party something cool to be effective against the devils in their magic abilities, at least like once per round, like give them a spell that like makes the next magic attack on it not have advantage, or not give it advantage on its saving throw. I keep mixing that up. But I think that making this guy interesting could be really, really fun, but I think they were just trying to fix in all the devils at once to like make them a bit more compact, which is unfortunate in my opinion, but it's also, as you say, it's like fitting them all into the same world, into this judgment or the 9 hells or whatever you have your devils into. Like they're all going to be in the same plane at least.
And in fairness, we do see like in later spot books like Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, we see like examples of devils or demons or other kind of like, you know, fiends that are a little more nuanced and have some more interesting interactions. But I do think maybe that in some ways that they wanted to just make like, you know, the monster manual full of like reliable monsters that you would be able to use in a lot of different occasions. So that's the Matrix room. Do we have any strong feelings that the hooked polearm would change up the Matrix room much?
No, I think it would make it even, well, if it was adjusted to have your 20-foot reach and that it had the pulling ability, I think that could change it up, because you could grab someone, pull them out of range of like having to take opportunity attacks. It prevents them from getting opportunity attacks if you grab someone, sting them, have them grappled, and then run away with them, and then just beat them up, basically. So that's probably how I would play the Bone Devil. And if I was to give him something cool, I would probably give him some like ability that is like, I don't know, lean physique, which makes him harder to hit or something. Like on a damn it, what is it called again? The same thing.
I don't. Opportunity attack.
Opportunity attack. Opponents get disadvantage on opportunity attacks, so that he can have the ability, even if he loses his polearm, to grab someone and run away without taking too much damage. Because I think that's probably how I would play him. If I didn't want him, even if I wanted him to be the intelligent contract writing devil guy that is going to come up with a deal and then he just decides to turn on you, or if you end up fighting him, he's going to have this technique basically, so that he is specifically different from everyone else, where he grabs, pulls away, beats up, and then either when your people get to him, he flies away and kind of skirts the group and has his magic resistance versus the long distance magic spells, and has a high armor class versus the ranged attacks. So I think that maybe that would be a bit too powerful an ability. Like, I'm leaning too hard on making this guy extra cool, because I like my baddies to be extra cool, and that might bump him up to a higher challenge rating. But I think that he would be fascinating in that regard if you were to give him like flavor, basically. Like, lean into some cool abilities that you might give him in your setting. But here he's not terribly interesting, which I think is a bit sad.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree. Like, that's absolutely fair. He just has kind of a fairly straightforward monster action stat block. I think my instinct would be to, rather than complicate the monster with new abilities, I think I would say that my gut would just be to put him in an arena that uses his features.
Okay.
So firstly, he's got a fly speed, so we can use that. So I'm thinking an arena that has some verticality. And secondly, he has Devil's Sight, which all the devils have, but like a lot of other devils, he does not have a mechanism to produce darkness. Like, I might even go as straightforward as he has 2 scrolls with the darkness spell on them. And he can cast darkness. Just say, he's not a spellcaster. Normally you need to be a spellcaster to use scrolls, but just say, for the purposes of this, it's a scroll that devils can use to cast darkness, or it's a similar item that is functionally a scroll of darkness.
like a gem or something that he can just shatter on the ground.
Exactly. Or like a sort of an infernal smoke grenade, like that that idea of just like a mechanism for the Bone Devil to produce areas of darkness.
Yes.
And I think that basically creating an environmental encounter where something like, you've got these like tall stone columns, or actually, no, that's not interesting enough. How about like sort of the petrified bodies of like giant creatures? So like these like stone giants who are like fighting each other and were suddenly petrified. And now there's sort of there's this sort of distant light casting long shadows. And as the sort of party enter this massive arena, they hear like the of like distant wings, and then the Bone Devil lands.
Yeah.
So it's sort of moving between all this vertical terrain, which is like these massive petrified corpses, and it's throwing down infernal smoke grenades and creating areas of magical darkness, which the party can't see through, and it can, so it knows what's going on, and they don't. And it's using its polearm to pull party members back into the darkness so that no one else can see them or help. And then it's just stinging them and maybe abandoning them in the darkness on their own. Or sort of, holding them there and forcing the rest of the party to follow the Bone Devil into the darkness, knowing that once they go in there, they're at the devil's mercy.
Yeah, or it could be something like that, and there are permanent fixtures that are a magical darkness that the party has to pass through anyway, and then something mysterious, they'll hear this intense thrum of its wings buzzing, and like they just take a sting attack because he can see them, and he'll swing his sting. And maybe if they, after the first one, give them a possibility of attacking, like with an opportunity attack, and like let them know that one thing or more is luring them through this thing and pecking at them as they travel. And that's a pretty cool. Yeah, either he has the ability to create them or they are permanent fixtures. I think is cool. I think for any devil, really.
I like the idea that those are like so they could be like almost like torches against the wall, but rather than producing light, they produce constant darkness. Because those are like a mechanism to disturb foolish mortals who interrupt the devils in their dark business. Because the devils, to them, it's nothing, right? Like magical darkness literally doesn't impede the devil's dark vision. They don't see any difference, but they understand that there's magical darkness there because they're pretty smart. So we can say that these like devils basically create these, and they know, like they're like infrared wires. They understand that other things will struggle with these, but we won't, because we can't. We see right through them. So that's kind of what I'd say is rather than forcing new features onto this app block, which you can do, but then you have to write them down somewhere and remember them. Just sort of say he can cast darkness 3 times a day with these cool infernal smoke grenades.
Yeah.
And the arena looks like this. So the arena has its own behavior, the darkness has its own behavior, and the Bone Devil has its own unchanged behavior. But collectively, they create a different kind of encounter. Like one that's about magical darkness and positioning, and sort of maybe there's opportunities there to tell a bit of story about what happened here. Why are these petrified corpses here? Like, what was this place, and why is there a Bone Devil here now?
Yeah. Maybe the Bone Devil speaks to them while they're in the magical darkness and starts telling them a tale.
That's true, yeah. It has telepathy, yeah.
Yeah.
So it starts whispering into their minds as they're blindly wandering through this field of blackness.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking infernal out loud and then telepathy into their heads would be super cool. So it's like you hear the disjunct between these weird, gross, like curling, kind of gross sounding infernal voice, while in your head you're hearing this dark evil voice just go, "These giants were petrified here by the great Asmodeus," or something along those lines.
Yeah.
That would be super cool.
What's happening?
It's in my head. It's in my head. But yeah, that's pretty cool. The old telepathy, I think, everybody so far has also had telepathy and Devil's Side. So yeah, that is another way to lend itself to, like, in this plane, things just have telepathy because they've bonded to the plane, basically. They are part of this world. So they all know how to speak to each other, and they can tell each other secrets. Or the bearded devil who has his imagined, like, he fights anyone with imagined insults. So, like, you could say that, like, "No, I heard it. You said it in my head." "Oh, maybe. Wow. Okay. Yeah." So just gotta go back to last week's episode. The bearded devil, maybe he has a voice in his head that he hears in other people's voices. So the imagined insults that he feels are, like, he thinks it's other people telepathically telling him these things. Oh, yeah. That'd be cool. Yeah, that's a fun little flavor. Just for me and for whoever else wants to rationalize why he might fight his friends for no apparent reason other than, "I must fight.
I fight for my friends.
I fight my friends."
I fight my friends. The other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of what the Bone Devil is and does is it is described by the Monster Manual as being the taskmaster of the lesser devils. So in the context of it being in charge of other devils, I think it should have a feature to do with that. And like I say, I'm lazy and don't like remembering new things. So I think a really simple way to do that would actually just be to say that its stinger has a different effect when it's used on devils. Because devils are immune to poison damage and immune to the poison condition. So in other words, it can attack. So the Bone Devil, you can say that if the Bone Devil uses the sting attack against an ally, it has advantage on the attack roll. It deals damage as normal, but obviously we know that its poison damage won't happen because it can't be poisoned. And instead of it becoming poisoned for a minute, it has advantage on its next attack roll.
Okay.
So we're still emphasizing the notion of a cruel taskmaster because the Bone Devil is hurting other devils to make them do things. But it is also driving them on, and actually there is a benefit to it.
If you wanted to give that a cool kind of worldly flavor, you could say that his hooked polearm is actually like a shepherd's crook, and he uses that to corral the other devils and stuff to keep them together. And it doesn't have an effect on humanoids, but it might have an effect on devils and devilish creatures, so that they stay in line and that they listen to him. Because it is a lawful place, so he's just, his crook is the law. I am the law. And he just makes those decisions based on presumably what his archdevil tells him.
Yeah.
Cool. I like him. This new bone devil is much more interesting, or given a bit of worldly flavor, I think. Yeah, I like him. I mean, he's always been visually appealing, but or visually appalling. But yeah, he's cool. I like him. I'll take one.
It would also be interesting to have the Bone Devil use the hooked polearm to grapple allies and airdrop them.
Kind of drop them in. I think we had the for the demons, we had the who was it? The big boy, the big bull boy.
The Garistro?
The Garistro, yeah, we had him as a kind of a rickshaw, like a human rickshaw. Well, a demon rickshaw. And I suppose the Bone Devil could just fly around and carry a bunch of the little guys, because he's large. So that's another thing. I think that because he's large, I would probably say that he's unencumbered by carrying a medium creature.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just for the sake of like his grappling and moving with characters. That's just probably what I would do. Although that does mean that if he wants to, he could just grab one of the PCs and then just run off.
Leave.
And okay.
Leave.
So it is probably better to keep him with a half for flying. Maybe vertically he can fly 40 feet, but horizontally he can only fly 20.
I don't know, even vertically flying 20 feet is pretty good. I mean, most players can fly 0 vertical feet.
This is true.
I mean, they can jump, but it's not the same. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't really think the fact that it would be moving half speed if it grappled something, because it's already faster. And I feel like in some ways that its improved speed is part of that design. The idea that if it starts to grapple things and then move with them, it still moves fast. It still moves faster than an encumbered party would.
Yeah.
And certainly it isn't as fast as it could be, but I don't know necessarily if that's a problem. I mean, if you think about it from the point of view, if it grabs a creature and then on its first turn flies directly upwards, like that creature can either, try to escape the grapple and take the damage from the fall, or try to hold on and hope that someone else has a better plan and risk potentially flying further up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's certainly something. I think it's certainly something to consider. You could, for example, say that while it is encumbered with a medium or smaller creature, while it is grappling a medium or smaller creature, its speed is reduced to 30 feet rather than half. So in other words, it would be as fast as the party, so they could still catch it.
Okay.
But it would still be faster than it should be, so it would still feel different.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're still representing that notion of it's encumbered because it's carrying something else.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure about the rules on grappling with regards larger guys, but I think a compelling thing to do would be to have him able to grab 2 people, like with one in each of his big bony clawy hands, and if you wanted to do that, to say that for each medium or smaller creature that he is holding, his fly speed is reduced by 10. So if he grabs 2, he's down to half speed.
Yeah, you could do that.
And he loses down to 20 foots. That could be cool. And then you have a hand. He's playing dolls with your characters, basically. He's just
no kiss.
No kiss. Any other ideas before we cut him up and make a stew out of him in Monster Hunter Our Mountain?
Boil him, mash him.
Monster Hunter My Monster.
I think it would be. I'm just thinking about its hooked polearm. If there's anything else I want to say about that. It doesn't have any ranged attacks.
No.
Maybe it can throw its polearm. Maybe it can launch barbs out of its tail, like the manticore, I think, can do that.
Yes.
And maybe if it does that, there's a lesser poison effect. Like it maybe, for example, if it's like its barbs could be like, 1d8 plus 4 piercing damage plus just 1d6 poison damage.
Yeah.
And maybe don't bother with the poison effect, just keep it simple.
Yeah.
So it would be a little more damaging than the claws. And maybe you could say, maybe just to keep it interesting, you could use Dex instead. So that way it's a little less likely to hit, because it is a ranged weapon attack. So yeah, that's kind of it. I just feel like, yeah, I feel like it would be more interesting if the Bone Devil could throw something. But it is obviously completely nude. It could also just like do like a bone spray attack where it just vomits bones everywhere.
Ooh, gross.
Like a big cone of bone.
Cone bone.
Which yeah, absolutely would be gross, but would also be like thematic.
Totally.
And finally, I think if anyone's going to have the ability to do it, the Bone Devil should have some kind of ability to like conjure skeletons.
Ooh.
Just a thought, because
that's flavorful.
Yeah, exactly.
He could also have a similar ability to the Casmi with the drone that his wings cause.
Yeah.
Like the sound of his wings could instill fear, like a low fear ability, like a low DC, like, or related to his stats. Maybe give them. Is fear based on wisdom or intelligence? Do you know?
Normally it's based on wisdom, but I think it depends. It can also be based on anything really.
Yeah, I'd say give him a DC 12 wisdom saving throw versus for anyone who can hear or anyone who is listening intently. Then otherwise they are afeared. They are hit by the fear ability. They become afraid. That's about it for what I could think of for him.
Yeah, cool.
How do we want to slice this sashimi?
Slice this sucker up. I certainly think there should be. You could make some version of the hooked polearm, but remember that the polearm that the devil wields is large creature sized. So
yeah,
you couldn't wield it normally. Although it would be interesting to say to the party that they can have it, and if they, for example, use the enlarge spell or similar magic increase their own size, they can start using it. Because that would be kind of cool, just to be like, you have the opportunity to use this unique weapon.
Or if you have a Goliath or some of the other larger creature races, like maybe a Furbolg would be able to use it because they're big cowboys.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Or you could just tell the players that they can use it as long as they shrink it first. Again, using the reduce magic, like, because you can also reduce objects. So you just tell them like you can shrink it to your size and then use it normally.
It's just the right fit.
Other than that, you could make a sort of a bony hide that presents you with a version of its natural armor. Because its natural armor is 16, which I think is a breastplate. Or is it breastplate 14 plus dex? I can't remember. I think a breastplate is 16 plus dex.
Breastplate is 14 plus dex with a max of 2.
To a max of plus 2 because it's medium, yeah. So I suppose, because it's 19 natural armor, but it has plus 3 dex. So it has 16 natural armor.
Okay.
So you could say that you have like a breastplate, basically a Bone Devil breastplate, which would be a breastplate that would give you probably some of the devil's immunities and resistances.
Yeah.
We talked about before, myself and Mikey talked about the idea of like that basically if you get a Bone Devil and you get like a checklist, and so like depending on you have, for example, 7 options, and depending on how well you roll on your skill check, you can select between like 1 and 5 of those options. Yeah. So the idea is like
the item tree or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you just sort of go like, okay, well we rolled, we can choose 4, so let's choose the Bone Devil breastplate, and by default, let's say that it gives you resistance to fire. Like it always gives you resistance to fire. It's a breastplate that does that. And then also, if you give up another slot, basically, it'll give you the resistance to cold.
Nice.
Or maybe it'll give you something else. Maybe you can use like if you roll max, you can get the Devil's breastplate with magic resistance, because that's obviously very powerful.
Yeah.
As I've mentioned before, its claws are long swords, so some
snap off
version
of the fingers.
yeah, like you could have them very, very rudimentary, just be like gloves your character pulls on, because they are large. I actually like the idea that they're gauntlets, like clawed gauntlets.
Over?
Like that you like pull them over, and then maybe like you can speak command words and they lengthen over your hands.
Cool.
Because that would be pretty cool. And you could do a fun thing where you could say like you like because they're sort of built into your arms, you could say like they both become like D8 slashing damage, like light finesse weapons, so that like the rogue can like dual wield with them and like slash people up, because that's kind of cool.
Radical.
Turning its barb into a spear seems like a good move, because it deals poison damage and it's long. It has a 10-foot reach, so obviously it's big, but you know you can cut it off at the right point and it'll be the right size for a medium creature.
Yes. And then using the eyes for the old devil's sight, or for
absolutely.
some form of telepathy with its helmet, as we tend to go for whenever they have a telepathic ability.
Yeah, I do think the Bone Devil has a really cool head. Like just looking at the art here, so like the idea of like just the upper half, like losing the lower jaw and like mandibles, and just having like basically the top half of the skull, and that being like a pull down helmet that gives you like the telepathy and devil's sight. That'd also be a very cool item for like a villain to have, because it would look very intimidating and suggest that they've fought this creature before and defeated it, which gives them some kind of bona fides.
Yeah, some credence.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of looks a bit like a Queen Xenomorph now that I think of it. Just
does a bit
with wings.
Yeah. You could also have the helmet grant some of the Bone Devil's saving throw bonuses. Maybe not necessarily proficiency, but you might just say like a +1 to intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, because those are the 3 it covers. Or proficiency in the insight skill, because that would be kind of cool and sensible, just that like you get like the Bone Devil's insight because you're wearing its head.
Maybe you can, if you can instill its soul into some kind of pendant, you can get a proficiency in deception or insight, because the devils have souls. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah,
I reckon you could do something along those lines.
That'd be cool if it was like a choker you wore around your neck, and it's almost like you're speaking with the devil's voice, and that's where the deception comes from.
Yeah,
and that could also give you proficiency in infernal.
Ooh, proficiency in infernal. I can't speak it, but I'm proficient in it.
I'm proficient.
I think that's a solid chunk of stuff we can do with this boy.
Yeah, I think that's almost. And I guess you could take its wing, which would be weird and cool.
Just take them. They're huge wings as well. You could use them as very large fans if you're ever feeling too warm in the Nine Hells, because it's pretty warm down there, I'd imagine.
You could use the Bone Devil's wings to make like a sail that's fireproof.
Ooh, nice.
That could be kind of cool.
That's super cool. If you ever want to sail through the hells with our bearded devil beard from our last episode.
I think we've used up every part of its body.
Yeah, we chopped it up, diced it up, and used every part of the creature, so nothing went to waste.
Yeah, used every part of the animal.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for listening in again this week for our 3rd installment in the Devils mini-series, I guess. We're going to be continuing on with them as soon as we can, and there might be some interstitial stuff. We're going to be doing more of that in the future. You can follow us, if you like, on whatever podcast host you are using by subscribing to the RSS feed or subscribing to us on your device, I guess. You can leave a review on iTunes, and we'll read it out at some point in the future when all 3 of us are back together. We got another one there recently that I just spotted. That was another very nice one. So
it was.
So keep them coming. They make us feel good.
They do.
And they do also give us a little bit of promotion on that specific platform on iTunes. So if the more you do that, the bigger we'll get, and the more. Well, I don't think we'll appreciate you anymore. Like, we'll appreciate it as much as, it's a good thing to do. So cheers. We'll give you a good pat on the back. We have a website, creatureclubpodcast.com, on which you can download the episodes, or you can just listen to them on the website. We have a contact form where you can contact us and let us know how you feel about how we've been getting on, or you can send us your homebrew, which you can also send us via our email address at creatureclubpodcast@gmail.com. We are also on Twitter at creatureclubpod, or you can just search Creature Club Podcast and you'll spot our little insignia. And I think that's just about it for the all wrap up.
I think it is, yeah. Yeah, I think you've covered absolutely everything. Except for, I suppose, if you do have any thoughts on the episode, probably the quickest way to get in touch is through the Twitter, just because we are all on Twitter fairly regularly, so we normally see it within the day.
Yeah.
But if there's no rush and you feel like formatting your thoughts more, emails are always nice. So, whatever suits.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for listening again. I have been Tim.
And I've been Dan.
Remain cold. or something. Stop being hot.
Stop it.
Stop, please.
That's enough.
See you all next week.
Goodbye.
Although I should turn off my air conditioner, so
I
don't have lots of background noise.
Aside from perhaps if some children outside decided to start playing in the enjoyable evening sun, in which case I would obviously have to go out and yell at them like an old man. You damn kids are ruining my podcast.
Wow, that's a very new age old man.
Yeah, I know, right? That's a weird intersectional old man, right? Like,
yeah,
still yelling at the kids, but now he's recording podcasts instead of, I don't know, smoking or whatever.
Yeah.
Back in my day, we'd be playing fidget games instead of making noise outside.
Shut up, old man. Everyone knows video games are outlawed.
That's in the Prohibition era.
All right. My air conditioner has silenced, and I am ready.